Today marks the 63rd anniversary of South Korea's April 19 revolution, the foundation of the nation's democracy and constitution. President Yoon calls for upholding democracy amid mounting threats. The U.S. is concerned that North Korea's latest solid-fuel ICBM is capable of targeting Washington, D.C. and raising further tensions. Pyongyang is planning to launch its first military surveillance satellite. The EU nears enacting a Semiconductor Act to boost chip production locally as it seeks to catch up with the U.S. and its CHIPS Act.
Good afternoon. We start with President Yoon Suk-yeol calling for the protection of South Korea's democracy, which he says is under threat. The president pointed to issues including propaganda and fake news as distorting and threatening the democratic decision-making systems that should be based on truth and free public opinion. The remarks came as he delivered a keynote speech on Wednesday during the April 19 Revolution ceremony. Adding that the democracy movement became the foundation of South Korea's constitution, Yoon promised to never forget those who made sacrifices for the country. The April 19 revolution was a student-led protest against government corruption in 1960, which led to the ousting of authoritarian leader Lee Seung-man. Of the 186 who died during the protests, nearly half of them were students. President Yoon Suk-yeol has hinted that South Korea could provide military aid to Ukraine if there are large-scale attacks on civilians or war crimes by Russia. Speaking to Reuters in an exclusive interview, Yoon for the first time expressed a willingness to provide weapons to Ukraine, marking a change in Seoul's position on providing lethal aid to Kyiv. He said there won't be limitations to the extent of the support to defend and restore a country under illegal invasion. Also during the interview, Yoon said he will seek tangible outcomes on deterring North Korea's nuclear threat ahead of his summit with U.S. President Joe Biden next week. Amid anticipation of a nuclear sharing arrangement, the president said the allies' response measures will have to be stronger than NATO's nuclear sharing plan. Now, escalating tensions on Korean Peninsula, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un orders the launch of the regime's first military surveillance satellite that could be capable of gathering information, including on South Korean defenses. The launch could possibly come within this month. Our defense correspondent Kim Hyun-sung reports.
North Korea's threats have expanded into space. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has ordered the launch of a military spy satellite. This was reported by their state-led Korean Central News Agency on Wednesday, after he paid a visit to the National Space Development Agency. Alongside some high-ranking officials in the regime's reconnaissance department, Kim took a look at what's reported to be the finished satellite device, the first of its kind. He urged the launch to happen as scheduled. A leading expert in North Korean studies says that this could be within this month.
It appears that Kim Jong-un has determined their technological readiness to deploy a spy satellite and may launch it before the Seoul-Washington summit to get the biggest political response out of it.
That summit is coming up next week. The expert also said the satellite should also be seen as a threat to South Korea. A spy satellite will enable the North to gather meaningful intel on South Korea's defenses, making it that much easier for North Korea to strike first. The last time North Korea attempted to launch a rocket into space was 7 years ago, trying to put an Earth observation satellite named the Kwangmyongsong-4 into orbit. Experts project that this new satellite will be the next step up from their last satellite and will be dubbed the Kwangmyongsong-5. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
It's been nearly a week since North Korea test-fired what it called a new solid-fuel intercontinental ballistic missile. The latest development is putting Washington on high alert amid concerns that it could strike the U.S. Capitol. Our Han Sung-woo has the details.
Commander of the U.S. Forces Korea, General Paul LaCamera, has warned that the Kim Jong-un regime in North Korea has developed military might capable of striking Seoul, Tokyo, Washington, and beyond. At a House Armed Services Committee hearing on national security challenges in the Indo-Pacific, LaCamera told American lawmakers on Tuesday that the priority of the USFK is to protect the U.S. and its allies, stressing that the United States' alliance with South Korea has deterred Pyongyang from waging war for nearly 7 decades and helped South Korea develop into a prosperous democracy. Taking into account the North's evolving nuclear and missile threats, though, he highlighted the need to strengthen the alliance, saying that the U.S. must never take it for granted as its center of gravity in deterring the Kim regime, and that the Korean War taught the U.S. that it must always be ready and forward-postured with its allies to ensure continued peace and stability on the peninsula. The general reassured the committee, however, that the joint forces are ready should Pyongyang increase hostilities. But regarding what's believed to be a new solid-fuel intercontinental ballistic missile the North test-fired last week, LaCamera said that such ICBMs do influence the United States' so-called indications and warnings efforts. Solid-fuel ICBMs are known to be harder to detect and require less pre-launch preparation. Congressman Seth Moulton of the Democratic Party expressed similar concerns the same day, pointing out that the 11 ICBMs Pyongyang displayed in a military parade back in February show that the U.S. may not have enough missiles to intercept them to protect its mainland. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
The European Union has struck an agreement enacting a massive investment to ramp up semiconductor production in the region. Once officially passed, it will be the EU's own version of U.S. CHIPS Act. Lee Seung-jae has more.
Last August, the U.S. signed its CHIPS Act with the aim of producing more semiconductors in the country. And on Tuesday, the EU agreed to a $47 billion plan for its semiconductor industry in a move to catch up to both the U.S. and Asia, while reducing its dependency on regions outside the bloc for its semiconductor needs. The EU CHIPS Act, which was initially proposed by the European Commission last year, looks to double the EU's share of global chip output to 20% by 2030, compared to the current production output of 10%. The plan also allows the bloc to build up its local semiconductor supply chain and prevent any chip shortages for important sectors, such as the automotive industry. EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen praised Tuesday's deal, saying the CHIPS Act will allow for a competitive chips industry and build a foundation for a global market share. With Asian semiconductor players like South Korea, Taiwan, and China already dominating the global market share, it'll be tough competition ahead, with the EU needing to quadruple its production rate to meet the 20% target. But since the news of the EU's chip subsidies plan last year, the EU has attracted over $100 billion in public and private investments. On top of that, the EU CHIPS Act has expanded the scope of these subsidies to further boost its competition against other countries. This includes a plan to expand subsidies across the whole production cycle to include research and development centers and mature chip production, and not just the factories where the chips are made. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Back here at home, South Korea added 3 more mpox cases on Tuesday, bringing the total number of cases in the country to 16. According to the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency, none of the 3 newly reported patients had traveled overseas recently. South Korea reported its first mpox case in June of last year, and the initial 5 cases were linked to overseas travel. But concerns have been rising as the subsequent 11 infections have all been local transmissions. South Korea is gearing up for a war against drugs. This as the once almost drug-free country is seeing surging cases of the illegal use of narcotics, with teenagers also facing alarming exposure. Song Yoo-jin reports.
Following up on President Yoon Suk-yeol's declaration of war against drugs, the South Korean government has laid out ambitious new plans designed to drive drugs out of the country. First, it's planning to set up a drugs and organized crime division under the nation's prosecution service that will strengthen the prosecution's power in investigating drug crimes. Those investigations will be supervised by another new body consisting of a combined total of 840 officials from not only the prosecution but also the police and the Korea Customs Service.
The government will, in particular, focus its investigations on drug circulation targeting teenagers, the distribution of drugs via the internet and large-scale smuggling. We will also track down related money flows and completely deprive criminals of any illicit profit.
Minister Pang also explained during Tuesday's briefing that Korea will start making use of state-of-the-art equipment to better detect new types of drugs and reinforce its surveillance of medical drugs distributed illegally. Criminal punishment will be pushed up a notch as well. The Yoon administration's pushing for the Supreme Court Sentencing Commission to strengthen its sentencing guidelines on drug crimes, especially on repeated offenses and large-scale smuggling. At the same time, though, the government's looking to expand rehabilitative care and addiction treatment. It has pledged to increase funds for the 24 hospitals nationwide officially designated as addiction treatment providers and also establish one more nationally funded addiction rehabilitation center. 송유진, Arirang News.
And on to another major battle facing South Korea, climate change. The nation has issued its very first report on climate change adaptation, warning that the country's climate is heating up at a faster pace than the global average. Our Lee Si-hoo reports.
South Korea's climate is warming at a faster rate than the global average. From 1912 to 2020, the average annual temperature in South Korea has increased by approximately 1.6 degrees Celsius, surpassing the global average of 1.09 degrees Celsius. This is according to the Ministry of Environment's report released Tuesday on the nation's sustained efforts and actions toward climate adaptation. Titled The Republic of Korea's Adaptation Communication, the report serves as the first of its kind submitted by Korea to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change as required by the Paris Agreement, an international treaty on climate change signed in 2015. The report notes that from 1968 to 2017, the sea level temperature in South Korea has risen by 1.23 degrees. This is 2.6 times greater than the global average of 0.48 degrees. The sea level from 1989 to 2018 has also risen by an annual average of 2.97 millimeters, surpassing the global average annual rise of 1.7 millimeters. To adapt to such change, South Korea has established a multitude of legal frameworks, policies, and institutional arrangements. Following the nation's first legal framework for climate change adaptation, enacted in 2010, the Framework Act on Low Carbon, Green Growth, in 2021, the Framework Act on Carbon Neutrality and Green Growth for Coping with Climate Crisis was passed, with enforcement to begin a year later. The law requires the central government to monitor climate change and implement adaptation plans. The nation has also developed what's called the Master Plan on Carbon Neutrality and Green Growth, which provides guidelines for responding to climate change until the year 2050. Meanwhile, South Korea is actively sharing its experience in implementing effective adaptation plans. The Ministry of Environment in its report reaffirmed South Korea's commitment to working with the international community in achieving the global goal on adaptation established under the Paris Agreement. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
And in South Korea's latest efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, the country has unveiled its first bus garage with a system that not only charges hydrogen buses, but also produces the gas. Our Lee Eun-jin has a story.
The buses get charged at this bus garage. The energy source is hydrogen. And this garage is the first in South Korea that produces hydrogen. In just 5 minutes, the bus is charged with 25 kilograms of hydrogen and is on the move. What's unique about these hydrogen buses is that there is no noise and no trembling. The brakes are quite responsive and the bus has easily enough power to travel uphill. While the garage is also equipped to fuel other gas-powered vehicles, it also produces up to 1.2 tons of hydrogen every day by processing the gas through a generator. And this kind of charging system is expected to become the standard model for hydrogen bus charging stations across the country.
The method of producing hydrogen currently is by modifying natural gas or LNG, but the government will push for a method that produces hydrogen using renewable energy or nuclear power.
The government has decided to increase economic feasibility of these buses by extending the warranty period for the hydrogen fuel battery cells from the original 5 years to 9 years. 400 hydrogen buses are being distributed around the country, with 130 allocated to Incheon City, 75 to Jeollabuk-do Province, 70 to Busan City, and 40 to Seoul City, in support of the policy that opens a new era for hydrogen buses. Eun-jin, Arirang News.
Knowing exactly where you are when inside can be difficult because GPS signals aren't at their strongest indoors. But South Korea has developed a technology that can pinpoint indoor locations, which can help with emergency operations. Our Jongun has the details.
A device 13 centimeters wide and 3 centimeters tall is installed on the ceiling. This is a pseudo-satellite, or Pseudolite, which is an artificial satellite location information system installed as GPS alternatives in places where GPS signals cannot be received. A Pseudolite allows the user to know their indoor location or route through smartphones or navigation systems, and without the need for separate equipment or applications.
Installing one or more Pseudolite devices indoors allows the user to receive more than 12 signals that pinpoint position so they can immediately determine their indoor location. The Pseudolite has a margin of error of 5 meters indoors.
South Korea's National Geographic Information Institute says that the Pseudolite can be used in various fields. It can provide quick escape routes in the event of a fire and locate victims of violent incidents. It also makes it easier to find people during rescue operations, such as building collapses.
It can help the police or fire department find the victim's location in the event of an accident in areas that need protection, such as nursing homes or mines. It can help find people through smartphones or other devices.
Current technology, however, makes it necessary to install one Pseudolite at a minimum interval of 20 meters. The price per unit is also expensive at 2 million won, or roughly $1,500. The South Korean government plans to conduct research and development with the goal of commercializing domestic Pseudolite technology in 2026. Jongun, Arirang News.
South Korean author Cheon Myeong-kwan's novel Whale has been shortlisted for one of the most prestigious awards in the world, the 2023 International Booker Prize. The book was nominated along with 5 others on Tuesday. The judges described Whale, which revolves around the lives of 3 women in a remote village in Korea, as filling them with awe. This is the 4th time a Korean book has been nominated for a Booker Prize. And if Whale wins, it'll be the 2nd Korean work to do so after Hangang's The Vegetarian in 2016. The winner will be announced in London on May 23rd.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In the United States, Fox News has agreed to pay just over $787 million to settle a defamation suit filed by Dominion Voting. The decision was announced in the Delaware Superior Court on Tuesday local time, just before lawyers for both sides were set to deliver their opening arguments. Dominion Voting initially sought $1.6 billion in its lawsuit. It was filed after Fox News broadcasts supported false claims that Dominion voting machines were used in ballot rigging during the 2020 U.S. presidential election. Dominion Voting claimed that the broadcasts had damaged its reputation. It was also revealed that several Fox News employees did not believe the claims but broadcast them anyway. As part of the settlement, Fox News has admitted to telling lies, but has said it is pleased to end the legal dispute. Dominion Voting has called the settlement historic. Turning over to China, where state media says that at least 21 people have been killed in a hospital fire. The fire broke out at Beijing's Changfeng Hospital on Tuesday local time. Some patients, desperate to escape the flames, climbed out of their windows by tying together bed sheets to make ropes. At least 71 people have been rescued and the fire has since been extinguished. It's not clear if all the people who were inside the hospital have been found or how many of the dead were patients. The cause of the fire is still being investigated. Now, tech billionaire Elon Musk has said he will launch a new artificial intelligence platform called Truth GPT. In an interview with Fox News on Monday, Musk said it will challenge other AI platforms offered by OpenAI and Google. According to the 51-year-old, Truth GPT is, quote, unlikely to annihilate humans and will seek to understand the universe. But the platform's development progress is unknown. Musk, a co-founder of OpenAI, has accused its ChatGPT of being trained to lie. In March, he joined 1,100 tech industry leaders who signed an open letter calling for a 6-month halt to the training of AI. This over fears that it may pose a threat to humanity. And finally, German photographer Boris Eldagsen has rejected a Sony World Photography Award after revealing that his entry into the competition was made using artificial intelligence. His work was titled Pseudolite, the Electrician, and won in the creative category. The black and white piece depicts two women from different generations. According to the Berlin-based artist, his submission was meant to test if competitions were ready for AI images to be entered. He concluded that they are not, and that instead AI images and photography should compete in separate categories, as AI is not real photography. Organizers of the contest said Eldagsen had initially told them that AI was used to co-create the piece. The controversy comes amid ongoing debate around AI and its place in the art world. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. A very warm and pleasant afternoon is here. Those of us in central parts of the country are seeing t-shirt weather with temperatures going up 10 degrees higher than yesterday afternoon, feeling more like late June than April today. We had a breezy start to the day under dazzling sunshine in the capital area, and that sunshine is sending highs into the high 20s this afternoon, leading to gaps of more than 15 degrees Celsius between lows and highs today in many parts of the country. More happy news is that air quality is normal to good nationwide today. Meanwhile, the south coast and east coast will be under rather cloudy skies with cooler highs this afternoon. The capital region's summer warms will last for the day. Light rain in northern central regions will bring back season norms tomorrow, while southern provinces will get a glimpse of summer tomorrow with an expected high of 30 degrees Celsius in Daegu tomorrow. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of the day.